Hey, how's it going? Today I'm going to be talking about stagflation and what that is. Stagflation is an economic term that refers to a situation in which economy experiences stagnant economic growth. In other words, little or no growth in real gross domestic product or GDP. If economy currently within particular country is not performing that well, usually it should improve at least 2% or even more year on year. But if it's not, there's perhaps different situations or deflation and inflation. And there's a lot of different cycles going on. Just something to perhaps worth taking a notice of. Along with high inflation and high unemployment, perhaps there's two factors there. This is a rare and unusual combination of economic conditions because in traditional economic theory, inflation and unemployment are expected to have an inverse relationship known as Phillips curve. There's different ways how you can understand different economies. One of those economies being currently Germany within Europe, one of the largest economies in Europe, that would be Germany's. And currently, the economy in Germany undergoing stagflation. There are a lot of factors that a lot of people need to take into account why that's happening. Perhaps prices of energy as well as supply chains of where they need to source some of the materials as well as some of the components for and products that they building develop some of the projects that they're developing there, but just high unemployment increase. There's a many factors to consider, but either way, stagflation just being one of those. Key characteristics of stagflation: uh, stagnant economic growth. Stagflation is characterized by periods of low or negative economic growth, meaning that the economy is not expanding as it typically would during healthy economic cycle. This can result in reduced business investment, declined consumer spending, and sluggish overall economic activity. If anything, all the processes can slow down. People can take the time to reflect of overall performance and look for areas where they can improve, do things a little bit better, and keeping positive mindset if anything, I guess. That's one way to look at it. So the economy is constantly going under seasons, right? So there's a lot of summers and there are a lot of winters as well. High inflation. Despite the lack of economic growth, prices for goods and services continue to rise rapidly. This high inflation can erode the purchasing power, how much you can buy with the same amount of money that you're receiving in your paycheck potentially, of consumer and reduce the standard of living. Because potentially there's a lot of factors that you need to take into account, but high inflation being one of those where governments would try to do what they can, I guess, with professional people working for those governments, look after themselves, and then perhaps some of the policies and programs that they might be interested in implementing. And to fund all of that, they might need some extra capital, and they need to take that capital or make it from thin air. And due to that, when they need to fund somehow all these programs, potentially that can benefit everyone, they creating money. While doing that, they can increase inflation. That means purchasing power of the already existing money. That's just one of the examples of what can happen potentially, and how that can potentially in the short term can have negative effects for a lot of people. Some of those winters to be considered, right? And from there, perhaps there might be some summers as well down the line, long term. Perhaps it's worth noting today is Sunday, and I'm constantly talking with the different organizations here in UK, and potentially opportunities, or what will be the process of working with those some of the government companies here as well, not necessarily limited to just UK, some of the organizations, government organizations in Europe as well, and some of those funding opportunities out there, and increase of spending just because of purchasing power of value of the money, right? So whatever was on the balance sheet back then, its value is been adjusted. If anything, my own takeaways, value has been adjusted, or purchasing power, right? Purchasing power was adjusted, numbers not necessarily increased, but there's an adjustment period taking place right now. That's my personal opinion, based on a handful of examples from my personal experience. So hands-on experience, personal experience. Value overall pretty much stays the same, I guess. It's just purchasing power of the overall how much money changing hands, right? Overall, high unemployment. Any takeaways with regards to high unemployment? I have one very interesting example. Stagflation is also marked by elevated levels of unemployment. This is contrast to the Phillips curve, which suggests that inflation and unemployment has an inverse relationship, meaning that then one is high, the another one is low. In stagflation, both inflation and unemployment are high simultaneously. Overall, it just some of the examples within the different regions in the world, they experiencing the same things differently. Many takeaways, depending on the government and performance on the government, as well as the mindset of the people within different territories. So, if any takeaways, comparing apples to oranges is not, it's not all the time the best examples. Let's try to keep positive mindset. Stagflation is a challenging economic scenario for policymakers because the typical tools used to combat inflation, such as raising interest rates, can exacerbate unemployment and further dampen economic growth. Conversely, policies aimed at boosting economic growth, such as lowering interest rates or increased government spending, can worsen inflation, as well as perhaps using reserves, oil reserves in some of the countries. I don't know. I don't know. There are a lot of challenging times, right? So some of the governments and some of the people, elected people within the particular organizations or governments, I don't know. Perhaps there's a reasoning behind it, how they're approaching that, and some of the steps they need to take to, and implement and decisions to make. I don't know. I don't know. For people out there who are interested in learning more, I have published a book. The name of the book is Game Strategy. In the book, I'm sharing a lot of information with regards to all information and research that you need to do or understand then before starting business, as well as if you do have existing business, as well as if you're looking to progress and become an investor and looking to invest in different businesses. So there's information for all types of people who are interested in business and potentially need to understand it very hard, which can be very hard concepts if you are just starting out. So I'm starting every chapter with very basic information, and I'm progressing from there into more complex and difficult terms, hoping that all the readers will understand everything what they need to know about current markets, as well as where those markets are going to be within the next 5 or 10 years. You can find this book in the description below, as well as top retailers has it. Stagflation was a significant economic challenge in the 1970s, particularly in the United States, and it was largely attributed to a combination of factors, including oil price stocks, supply side issues, and overall expansionary monetary policies. It led to the revelation of economic theories and policies, as a traditional Keynesian approach struggles to explain and address the stagflation conditions. If anything, uh, So if currency is not backed by anything, and we constantly try to back that currency against some other factors of that, one of them perhaps being oil or other different commodities, right? It's just challenging times, especially if you're trying to adjust inflation against your own reserves, and what kind of circumstances that gonna have in the long term. Once you use those reserves, you need to refill those reserves, and you're gonna look for or wait for a better price. So it's just overall challenging time, I guess, for everyone out there. Dealing with stagflation typically requires careful balance and monetary and fiscal policies. It can. So I have read some of those policies that are not necessarily agree with any of those. So it just as well as addressing underlying structural issues and economic economy, such as supply constraints and productivity challenges that may contribute to the stagnant growth and inflation pressures. Overall, if we're talking about any particular economist, I personally believe that people up there, if there's a set of problems, they're trying to overcome existing problems. While trying to overcome existing problems, the new problems will pop up. So it's just something that's currently happening. If they, at any point any of the economists had a problem with food, they overcome that obstacle. Perhaps energy was a different obstacle that different economists up there were trying to overcome. From there, or they had new problems like physical policies or financial policies that they might have. It just so they have some territories solve one problem, next problem, next problem. Now they have a new problems, right? So it just continues process. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.